Dr. Warner was not just any traveler. He was a well-known field surgeon who had spent years volunteering in remote parts of Africa, helping villagers who had no access to hospitals. On this warm afternoon, he was driving his old Toyota Fortuner from the bustling city back to his childhood village, where he planned to spend a few days visiting old friends and offering free medical checkups. The main highway stretched endlessly, but Warner, eager for a shortcut, took a narrow dirt track leading into the jungle. The air grew thicker, the sounds of the city fading into the wild symphony of rustling leaves and distant animal calls. After nearly 30 minutes of slow driving through the winding jungle trail, Warner reached the dense heart of the forest. That's when it happened. His engine began to hiss and steam. The temperature gauge shot up. He stopped, popped the hood, and a cloud of hot vapor rose into the humid air. His old Fortuner had finally overheated, leaving him stranded in the middle of nowhere. Warner unlocked the Fortuner's front bonnet, letting the trapped heat escape in a heavy wave. Steam and faint white smoke hissed upward before slowly fading into the still jungle air. Shaking his head, he moved to the back seat, unzipped a storage bag, and pulled out his compact red camping tent. Choosing a safe, open spot a short distance from the vehicle, he began assembling it with practiced hands. Once the tent was firmly staked, he gathered dry branches and leaves, arranging them neatly for a fire, his shield against the unknown dangers lurking in the African night. The sky was painted in shades of orange and purple as the last light of day clung to the horizon. Warner sat cross-legged beside the fire, his red tent pitched just a few feet away. The dry wood snapped and popped, sending small sparks upward into the cooling air. Over the flames, he had placed a sturdy iron stand, balancing strips of fresh meat that sizzled and dripped juice into the fire. The rich aroma mingled with the smoky air, both to satisfy his hunger and deter curious predators. Above him, the sky still held a dim glow, not yet night, but the jungle's shadows were growing thicker, and its whispers more alive. Warner was still tending to the meat, carefully turning it over the crackling flames, when a faint rustle reached his ears. It wasn't the wind, this was the deliberate sound of footsteps on dry leaves. His hands froze mid-motion. Slowly, he turned his head, and what he saw made his breath hitch. Just a few paces away stood a massive, pale brown lion, its golden eyes fixed on him. The animal's flank bore a fresh wound, and it breathed heavily, clearly in pain. Warner instinctively shifted back a step, heart pounding, torn between fear and awe. The firelight flickered across the lion's face, casting long, trembling shadows in the jungle's growing darkness. For several tense seconds, Warner and the lion locked eyes, the fire crackling softly between them. There was no roar, no aggressive stance, only exhaustion, pain, and a strange silent understanding. The lion's movements were slow, its body thin and weakened, as if it had narrowly escaped a deadly hunter's attack. Patches of its fur were ruffled and dirty, the fresh wound along its side still bleeding slightly. Warner's grip on the stick in his hand tightened, his heart still racing. He was cautious, even afraid, yet something about the animal's gaze told him it wasn't here to harm him. In that quiet moment, predator and man shared a fragile, unspoken truce. Warner's mind raced, weighing the risk. The lion was clearly starving, yet its injuries made it unpredictable. Slowly, he lifted the cooked meat from the small grate above the fire and placed it onto a metal plate. His hands trembled slightly as he crouched, setting the plate on the ground. Maybe, he thought, if I show kindness, the lion might spare me. The animal's golden eyes followed the plate's slow movement, ears twitching at the faint scrape against the dirt. Warner swallowed hard, his breath shallow, wondering if he had just made the bravest, or the most foolish, decision of his life. The lion's gaze stayed on Warner for a moment longer before it lowered its head toward the plate. Its movements were slow, almost hesitant, as if each step toward the food required great effort. When its teeth finally sank into the cooked meat, Warner noticed the tremor running through the animal's body, weakness from hunger and injury. The firelight flickered across its pale brown fur, revealing old scars and fresh wounds. Bite after bite, The lion chewed carefully, savoring every piece. Then, as the last scrap was gone, it lifted its head and released a deep, low rumble, not aggressive, but powerful enough to make Warner's heart pound in his chest. He froze, unsure if it was a warning or gratitude. Warner stood frozen, still feeling the echo of that deep rumble in his chest. The lion's golden eyes lingered on him for a heartbeat longer, and then, without warning, it turned away. Its injured leg dragged slightly as it moved, yet it slipped into the tall grass with surprising grace. The rustling faded quickly, swallowed by the night, leaving only the crackle of Warner's campfire. He remained still, stunned by the sudden emptiness where moments ago a wild predator had stood. Questions swirled in his mind. Why hadn't it attacked? Why had it come so close? And would it return? The jungle around him seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for the next move. The moment the lion vanished into the tall grass, a deep chill ran through Warner's spine. His hands trembled as he glanced at his small camp, now feeling like a trap. Without wasting another second, he abandoned everything and sprinted toward his fortuner. Heart pounding, he yanked the door open, slid inside, and twisted the key. Miraculously, the engine roared to life instantly. No hesitation this time. Throwing it into reverse, he backed out fast, the headlights cutting through the darkness. Then, shifting into drive, he pressed the accelerator hard, the SUV bouncing over rough terrain as he raced toward the jungle's edge. Every shadow seemed alive, urging him to get out before the wild claimed him too. After 4 intense minutes of speeding, Warner finally broke free from the jungle, his tires gripping the cracked surface of a small local highway. Relief flooded him, but his mind still replayed the lion's piercing eyes. Soon, the gates of the wildlife reserve came into view. Without pausing, he parked and rushed straight into a ranger meeting. Bursting into the room, he began recounting the night's events, his voice shaky yet firm. The rangers listened in awe until one finally said, "You cooked for that lion today, and Allah granted you another life in return." Heads nodded in solemn agreement. Moments later, they began planning a rescue operation for the injured lion. If you love true survival stories and moments where nature tests the human heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Your support helps us bring more real-life rescue stories from the wild straight to you.